Welcome to The Road Reflected with Nicole Wakelin. Automotive from the lighter side. That means cars, but also cookies, coffee, and pie. Up first, what's Nicole behind the wheel of this week?
So instead of a vehicle that I actually was loaned by an automaker this week, I have a vehicle that we chose to drive.
We rented,
and the reason we rented a car was because we were on vacation and we were actually in Switzerland.
the land of cheese and Alps.
Oh my gosh, there's so much cheese.
And chocolate.
And there's so much chocolate.
Oh, man.
I'm not complaining. It's just like a lot of cheese and chocolate.
We'll talk more about cheese and chocolate later.
Yeah.
But
So, yes. So what we rented was, what did you say? What did you tell the rental car company you wanted? It wasn't exactly this vehicle.
Well, it was, they give you that range. They kind of give you the mid-size SUV sort of thing.
Which you don't want something
like,
big in.
And it's like a BMW is what they always tell you. Like
Right.
a BMW. Now, I didn't need to be a BMW. In fact, it wasn't. We got this Volvo.
Yes, a Volvo XC60, which is like a 5-passenger, 2-row SUV. It's available as a gas and a plug-in hybrid here in the
We
U.S.
got it as a diesel.
We had a diesel because we were in
Power.
Europe. So it was a diesel, which was lovely to drive. And, it was really fun to drive. It's fun because you get a rental and it's still sort of like, I don't know where anything is, I don't know if anything works. But of
Right.
course, I have no Monroney. So I'm like, wait, I got to look up this car now. I don't know anything about it. So I thought I would talk about it since it was kind of fun to rent a car that I don't really get to drive. And here's a cool thing. So the day that we arrived in Zurich, we were actually supposed to be there quite a bit earlier than we were because there was this huge snowstorm that hit.
Yes, it slowed us down.
Right. And it hit Munich with like 17 inches of snow or something crazy.
Munich was closed for like days.
Right. Well, I think he might be exaggerating. Anyway, Munich was momentarily closed. But that did cause like a problem with everything. So we were really delayed. So we arrive after sitting in the airport for hours. We arrive in Zurich. It's later than we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of jet lagged because we've only been in Europe for a couple of days and I've not made up the time difference yet. And it's nighttime and it's snowing.
And we get a Volvo.
And I thought, oh my gosh, what the heck kind of a car I'm going to get? Because I also don't know where I'm going. Roads are a little different. Driving's a little different. So we get this Volvo XC60. That was fabulous.
Oh, what a great car for these conditions.
Oh my gosh. It was so fun to drive in the snow. It handled so well. And there's something to be said for like when you drive a car in the snow, if it's your own car, you kind of know your own car a little bit. Like, you know how your own car handles, you know how it stops, you know how it moves, you know how it feels in the snow. Anytime you get in a car that's not your own car, you don't really know that. You don't have that same intuitive sense of exactly how it's going to handle in the snow. So tired, nighttime, foreign country, jet-lagged, snow. And it was a joy to drive this.
It was a cool car. It felt nice.
Yeah.
Being in the passenger seat, and then also plenty of room.
Yes.
So a lot of times you get these, the European cars are generally smaller.
We tend to get a lot of versions of cars, or even cars they don't have in the U.S. that are smaller, and they say like mid-size hatchback or something. You're like, oh my gosh! And the thing is, in the U.S. that'd be a compact.
Yeah.
Like, so the sizing's a little skewed when you rent.
I thought we were traveling reasonably responsibly. We had 2 full-size bags.
Yes.
The kind you have to check in an airplane. And then we had 2 carry-ons.
Yes.
And then we each had like a little backpack.
So it wasn't crazy, man. And we were gone for a long time.
But
so
a lot
we
of
wanted
times those mid-sized
space.
cars, that fills them up. But not this one. The Volvo had plenty of space.
Yeah, the XC60 was great. It had plenty of room. It was really easy to drive. It had heated seats that heated up in like 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Which was amazing. I felt like I had exactly the right car for the conditions that I was driving in.
Yes. And we wanted a nice sized vehicle because we had some traveling companions to be meeting up with, and we wanted the option to drive around with them. And this car just had plenty of space for everyone.
Right. And it was actually, so it was fun to drive this. I enjoyed it. And I like to, one of my like silly features, things that I really like, but still think this is a really cool silly feature. So the wireless charging pad is like sort of on the center console and it sits right there. It holds the phone. It's pretty good size. So it's going to hold your phone without sliding back and forth, but it's also like rubberized on the bottom. It's not plastic. It's actually a little bit rubberized. So your phone stays put. Like there's nothing like having a wireless charging pad that your phone can slide and bounce enough over the bumps so that every time you take a corner, every time you go over a bump, you lose that connection and you can see the phone going like blink, 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 blink as it connects and then loses and then connects and then loses it. So I actually thought that was one of the coolest things about this was I really enjoyed that, but it was also really just genuinely fun to drive. So we were in twisty-turny little country roads outside Zurich once we got outside of there, and it wasn't snowing the whole time we were there, just the day that we came in, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I thought it was fun.
to in Switzerland, it's not like Germany. It's not a
right. There's not an Autobahn. Yeah.
But they do hit 120 kilometers an hour, which is like, I don't know, what, 65?
I don't know. I can't be expected
70,
to do math
like
on
that.
the fly.
So you go pretty quick. And you got to feel for its pickup and its speed and its handling. And it was all pretty good.
does. It handles well. I don't get to really drive diesel cars because we don't really have after the whole big Volkswagen diesel situation a few years back. Diesels are sort of, there's diesel trucks and there are diesel vehicles, but they were sort of on the upswing. And then all of a sudden I'm like, no, they're all polluting and terrible and didn't realize what they were doing. We thought they were good and they're not. So we sort of stopped doing them, but you just still got a lot of diesels in Europe. And it was really funny that when we rented it, because they can tell that, they see that we're from the US. She's like, it's a diesel. Okay. Right. She's like, it is a diesel.
Just don't put the wrong gas in.
Only diesel fuel into your vehicle. Right. Yes. What kind of vehicle is it? Diesel. Okay, now you can go. She's very worried. It made me feel like more than a few people have somehow managed to not remember that and have maybe ruined a car
now,
too.
Also, the other thing about Europe that's tricky is the reason cars are generally smaller, even though it's the same class, is that the side roads are very tiny.
Some of these roads that you think, I swear to you, it would be a one-way road in the United States.
Yes.
But it's not.
So I was like, look at that little town over there. We're going to swing by and we're going to go check out this little monastery situation on this hill. And we had no idea of how to get there or anything else like that. So like, how is this car handling those little narrow streets? Because there's a lot of little narrow streets and everything.
It is nice that you don't want, like, when you say mid-sized SUVs, you really don't want a big car. Like, they were offering us something a little bit larger when we got there. Like, do you want this larger thing? And maybe if I was home and renting somewhere in the US, I might have said yes. But there, I thought no, absolutely not, because
we've driven enough in Europe to know don't take the size of
you don't really want the bigger vehicle because it's not going to serve you well. Going to realize that you don't want anything big. You never want anything big. So in the US, the Volvo XC60 starts at about $46,000 and change. So it's not like super cheap and affordable, but it's not really in luxury car territory. I think it's totally worth it. Like, I would drive this car. Like, it's funny. I don't always get a car that we have as a rental. A lot of times rental cars are just rental cars and they're horrible. Like, they're the base term of something. They're awful. They're like the one that, they're the one you would never buy or see on a dealer lot because no one's going to get it that stripped down. But this one was really nicely equipped. It had, nice seating surfaces. And the bolstering on this I love because it had bolstering that was, this isn't really a sports car, but it had just enough bolstering to the seats that as you're taking these really tight little turns on these twisting side roads, it kept you in place without feeling like it squished you. And I love that. Okay, everyone, if you like what you're hearing, then go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe either on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher.
Yes, and leave those positive reviews on iTunes. Positive only, please.
Positive only. That's his mantra, positive only.
Yes.
So in line with talking about driving the Volvo XC60 in Europe, if you haven't driven in Europe, so it is an experience unto itself. It is entirely different. And here's the weird thing. Like, we talk about the United States, like, okay, people in Boston, like they call them like Massachusetts people, they call them, and they say this themselves proudly, they're massholes.
Yes.
Right? Like with an M in the front.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize for
and
that.
You think that you're like being obnoxious, but most Massachusetts people, if anyone's listening to this from Mass, they're like,
they're self-aware.
Right? So you have regions of the country where people are known for being aggressive drivers or angry drivers or, being vulgar to each other.
Right.
But this driving style does change a little bit in the US. Like, they are legitimately more chill in the South than they are in the Northeast. Of
course. Yeah.
Like, there's differences in how they drive. It's the same way in Europe. There are very different styles to driving. So I found that the most chaotic place, what do you think the most chaotic place, I bet you've been with me on both of them. The most chaotic places to drive where I feel like there is no rhyme, reason, or rule to anything.
It's a tough call between France and Italy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think Italy wins if you count Rome.
Yes.
But then if you count Paris, it's pretty close second.
You somehow come into these cities, you're like, I'm going to be a responsible driver. And then by the time you leave, you're like, no, I'm not responsible. Get out of the way. You almost have to just close your eyes and say a prayer and drive through some of these intersections.
Honestly, like all of Europe, the streets are so small.
Yes.
And windy. And even the lanes, like where the bike lane starts and stops, and the car lane stops and stops, and the pedestrian lane starts and stops, like it all gets very convoluted.
Well, and it was especially true like when we were in Amsterdam for the end of this giant adventure, and we didn't drive there. Thank God, because driving was crazy because between just regular old pedestrian traffic, tourists like us who have no idea where the heck we're going, and bicycles zooming in every direction with their little ding, 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 ding bells. As a pedestrian, I felt like it was, I didn't know where not to look. Like I was constantly, my head was swiveling around. But when we were in cars with drivers going various places, what they were doing, like the stopping short to not hit bicyclists and getting around these narrow streets and going up onto curbs, not because they're being reckless, mind you, just because there is no other way to get through these tiny little narrow streets in these places. So I felt like Amsterdam was a bit chaotic. Definitely France and Italy are insanely chaotic and very, very fast once you get out into the countryside. Like they drive crazy fast when there's like
when it's open road. I'm using air quotes because open road in Europe is not the same as open road in the US.
But when there's
like
these
open road in the US, you feel like 6-lane highway. No, open road in Europe is like a relatively straight road that may be a car and a half wide.
Exactly. But in Germany, it's reversed. Germans are some of the most organized. Like you will drive the way.
In Germany, it is very well thought through.
Despite that they have the Autobahn where people are driving very fast
Or maybe
speeds,
because of it.
Or maybe because of it. So you can go as fast as you want. But then if you're being reckless, of course, if they think you're being reckless, they'll pull you over. Like you're not going to be a reckless driver because they're going to get you. But you do have that, like people come, they pull into the left-hand lane. They do their passing. They pull immediately in the right lane. It's the most orderly driving ever. So if you're someone who likes rules, drive in Germany. I feel like Switzerland fell somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, did you feel like they're pretty orderly? I felt like they're pretty orderly.
I felt like the Swiss were pretty orderly folks.
Yeah.
Their driving was pretty orderly. They
even the pedestrians crossing the street in Switzerland felt a little more observe the lights than maybe someplace like Amsterdam.
So it wasn't crazy to drive in Switzerland, but it's still just the very narrow roads and and the parking situation, which is somehow confusing. Like when we were talking about that castle that we were trying to get to on the hill, and it was like, turn right here for parking. We turn right for parking. And there were like all these gates, but all of them were up. I'm like, oh, is it free parking because we're off
get yourself
season?
into one-way situations.
And we're going down what appears to be a one-way street, and then it just ends in a parking lot with a bunch of like panel trucks,
like utility vehicles. You're like, am I supposed to be here?
And he's like, no, this is the way. I'm like, these cars are covered with snow. There's like,
no one's gonna care. Let's park right here.
I don't think we can do this here. I think this is the wrong place to be parked. I think we need to find a way to get out. And then it was like, how do you get out? Oh no, this is 2 lanes. It looks like one. I don't know how I'm supposed to get out, but it really looks like it's 1 lane. It's insane.
Yeah, it is crazy.
But the fun part about driving through Europe is the 2 things. If you get into Germany and you really like to drive fast, you can't drive as fast as you want in the US. I think a couple places in the Midwest. Aren't there a few places in the Midwest that don't have a speed limit? Or it's like really, really high or something? I thought there was once upon a time.
At some point there was, or it's really high. It's like 120.
I thought there was a thing about, but generally speaking, you got to obey the speed limit in the US. Or theoretically you do, because I feel like, the highway says 55 and everyone's going to 85 and that's but theoretically you can't just drive as fast as you want. You can do that on the Autobahn, which is great. And it is very orderly, but the chaos that you experience in some of the other countries, I think, is the balance for it. Depends which country you go to. And if you go to Ireland, it feels like everything is made for a bicycle, not a car. Like there's nothing, no road in that entire country feels wide enough for a car.
And as a pedestrian, let's just talk about bikes for a second. Because like some of the European cities that are really known to be bike friendly,
like Amsterdam,
they're almost like pedestrian not friendly. I don't know the right way to frame that.
Pedestrian.
But like Copenhagen and Amsterdam, for example, are 2 very bike friendly cities where there's a lot of bike traffic. So much so that it's actually more dangerous to a pedestrian to watch for the bikes than the cars. But the cars are not a problem. The cars will stop in the crosswalks. The cars will generally go at a respectable speed and you can see what's happening. The bikers, they just like swerve through there. Like, I mean, most of them usually oftentimes will at least slow down in a crosswalk situation. But God help you if you're not in a crosswalk. Because those bikes will not stop for you.
They will run you right down. Well, and it was, we did see one when we were walking around, because they all have the little bell, like the little stair, like
they
the
ring
little
them.
ding, 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 ding. But you hear it so much. It's almost like when you're in a car and the safety systems are beeping. You're like, there's so many things beeping. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking in the car that's supposed to be telling me that. It's the same thing with the bike. She's like, I don't know where the bike that's about to hit me is. Is it on my left? Is it my right? Is it behind me? I hear so many bells ringing. There was a guy going through the other night, and the bell on his bike must have been broken, and he's going, what was he saying? Deep, or beep, beep?
He was going ding, 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 ding. But it was his voice.
Ding, ding, like ding, ding.
Now, here's the other thing.
He literally was saying it.
Mopeds and other motorized bicycles
motorized two-wheeled vehicles sometimes can be in the bike lanes.
Yeah, I don't
Which is
understand the rules.
actually risky. But then there's these ultra small cars that are the size of what we used to have as smart cars.
They're
in the
even
US.
smaller than a smart car.
I think they're
Honestly,
smaller
they're
than a smart
narrower.
car. But these guys can park in bicycle spots and they can drive in the bike lanes.
I don't get it.
I don't know what the rules are, but it's just like these bikes are like everywhere. It's not a menace. It's super cool that everybody's
Yes.
Saving the planet on
It's
bicycles.
great that there's
I'm
bikes.
just saying, as a pedestrian, as someone who likes to walk,
Yeah, I should clarify. We're not anti-bike. I'm just
we're not
anti
anti-bike.
being run over
I'm
by
just
a bike.
saying, keep your head on a swivel when you're in some of these cities with the bikes, because it is.
Well, and
it
the
is like
bikes, and
madness.
they're parked everywhere. Like there's just mobs of bikes everywhere. But they also, I love the little tiny cars that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And some even that are like smart cars. They don't parallel park. They just head in park on a spot
It is
that's
headed in
wide
a parallel
enough.
spot. Yeah, they're as long as most cars are wide,
Yes.
so they can fit into a parallel park head in.
It's just so funny to see them get to a spot. You're like, he can't fit in there.
So you can get three of
And he
those little
does.
bad boys inside one of these.
And they just
things.
pull
It's
right
crazy.
in. And in Amsterdam, they parallel park along the canals and there's absolutely zero
Oh, yeah, and
curb
there's no
or rail.
railing. No.
So it's literally just it's a drop off.
They're
It's
just pulling up
like
to that, and they know where to stop.
Like the cobblestones are the same height all the way to the point where they go poof and you're in the canal. And
Yeah.
people are parked like inches away from it.
I know. It feels like you could push that car in the water if you really
It
wanted
feels like you
frankly.
could, like a bunch of drunken, crazy people could push them in it. But I just don't know how they do it. I'm like, who's the parent who has to teach your kids to do that? And where do you teach your kids to do that? Because if you make a mistake in like here, right?
Yeah.
You curb clip your wheels. Big deal.
Right.
You make a mistake
You're in the
there.
canal.
You were in the canal.
Oh, and they were talking about that too in one of the little tour groups we were in, how they dredge the bicycles out of the canal.
Yes.
Like that's the biggest problem. Is
Like you have
bicycles
to
falling
lock
in the
up your
canal.
bike because if you don't lock up your bike, some
Someone
drunken
will throw
sot
them,
is
or they'll
going to
get
throw
rolled
it
in.
into the canal. When
So
you're
I
not
got to
paying
feel like every once in a
attention.
while they pull a smart car out of there, but it's probably mostly
I
bicycles.
know. That would be a great statistic. How many cars a year actually manage to find their way directly into the canals in Amsterdam?
But I got to say, the unsung hero of the European driver has got to be the tour bus driver.
Yes.
These guys, I don't even know how they do what they do. They're in streets that, by anything that is rational, a regular compact car would have trouble in. And they're driving tour buses.
Yeah.
Now, I did start to watch one of these tour buses very closely, and I realized that it's a pair of wheels in the front, and then there's two pair in the back.
Yeah.
But all six wheels steer.
Right.
So that
Which
definitely
does
helps.
make it easier, but it's still crazy how
But I don't know if
narrow
that makes it
is.
easier. It just means you have a lot of controls you got to figure out. I don't know how these guys do it, but they get into these situations, they back in, they back out, they turn around, they get into places that just really shouldn't be possible.
Yeah,
It's pretty
there's no
impressive.
way I could drive. Well, I don't know how to drive a bus anyway, but there is absolutely no way in the world that I would ever attempt to drive a large SUV. I think I'd be afraid to drive a large SUV into Europe because I'd lose a side view mirror. Hey, wait, did we just drive by a bakery? Okay, since we were on vacation, we didn't drive by anything that looks sweet.
No, we walked to all the
stopped.
bakeries.
We walked everywhere.
And we know the word for bakery in about like 5 languages.
Right,
now.
you
We
can
are
recognize.
pros at spotting
Yes,
bakery.
I'm like, wait, that says bakery in whatever
Yeah.
language it is.
It's basically bakery. You just add a few more K's or a couple R's, and it's
or an OI.
instead of a Y.
Yeah, you add extras like BAK and then make your
can't
own.
miss it.
Choose your own adventure for the language after that.
That's right.
And then it's like, then the rest of
That's
it,
right.
like you get the BAK and you know it's a bakery. So, excuse me. While we were there, we tried some stuff that was really cool but totally different. So one of the things was gingerbread because
Yes.
we were at Christmas markets.
Yeah.
And gingerbread is like the quintessential
Yes.
Christmas everything. Cookie, coffee flavor, latte flavor, hot chocolate flavor. I think they flavor eggnog that way.
Yes.
It's like the flavor that you're going to use if you're going to do Christmas stuff.
Yes. But the thing we should point out about gingerbread, specifically in Germany, but pretty much most of the European countries that do like these Christmas markets and stuff this time of year have all copied it. Leberkuchen, which is the German gingerbread,
Yeah.
has no ginger in it.
No, and it doesn't taste like gingerbread. It's
is
super.
no
You're expecting
ginger.
it to be this really
So
amazing
the classic
gingerbread.
like brown gingerbread house you see, Hansel and Gretel, all that stuff, no ginger.
No,
They call it gingerbread, but it's not ginger.
It's kind of like it almost got like it's a little. It's got like a fruitiness to it.
It's got just a hint of a fruit. It's good. I like it.
It's good, but it's not
But
gingerbread
it's
by
not what
our
Americans would call gingerbread. Yeah.
So that's always a little disappointing because you're kind of like, oh, that's not really
Still tasty though. Oh, and if you're going to buy it, don't buy it in like a funny shape, like in a heart.
Yeah,
or
they
a
have it all with
gingerbread
like shapes.
No,
with,
you want to
with
buy it in like just
crazy
a shape
colored
of like a
icing.
little, like almost like a shingle of a roof, like a little just
A roof
rectangle.
shingle.
And they stamp some image on it. Maybe that's the soft. Oh, right, warm. It is good.
See, but I'm not a real huge fan of the gingerbread.
I do
in Europe.
like it. It's just different. I like it.
No, I couldn't get by it. What I did like it, they have a lot of annis, the licoricey flavor kind of thing for cookies and all sorts of stuff. You could get that everywhere.
Yes, those are great. And I think we may have talked about sprinklers before on the show. Those are the cookies that you press out, and they have a lot of anise seeds on the back. But in Germany, particularly, they make a lot of different anise style baked goods.
Yeah, a lot of flavor.
It's much more common than it is in the U.S. And I love that sort of licoricey flavor. Oh, so good.
Which is really yummy. We also saw, I don't know how to spell this, so I literally spelled it on the show notes the way it sounds.
Yeah.
It looks like it's pronounced Schneeballen.
Yeah.
And it's like...
It's like for snowball.
It's like but it's like you took the leftover pie crust bits. Like if you're making a pie, anybody who bakes, and you take the leftover, you always...
trim the edge.
Right. You always have edges. You always have bits that you can't use. Right. And instead of just chucking them or whatever, they take them, they just layer them all together.
Mob it up into a ball.
And make it into a ball. And I think they deep fry them.
But it's not, don't think of it like as a whole ball. Think of it like you just took those cut strips and sort of wove them together. So it's a little bit hollow.
Yeah.
You can kind of see through it.
Yep.
But it's basically pie crust. And I guess they fry it, or
I don't know. Maybe they bake it. Maybe it's baked. It might be baked.
But then they cover it in various good, tasty little sugary.
So they put cinnamon sugar over it. They put
powdered sugar.
Yeah,
basically anything you hit a donut with.
And it's really good. But it's really good. It is really so good.
So it's like eating your leftover pie crust your mom had.
But the funniest part of it is there is absolutely no way on earth to eat this without making a complete and total mess of yourself.
They're a great outdoor food.
Yes.
Like you're outdoor at a Kringle Mart.
If you're wearing black, don't buy one. No. Because you will have black. I had a black jacket on. It was like, oh my gosh. I had powdered sugar all over me as if it looked ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was a fun thing that we had. And they also have this thing. Are you a big marshmallow guy? I like marshmallows.
There's two things they do there that I just don't enjoy, but I can appreciate the art. The one is the marshmallows, where they sort of puff these marshmallows up in interesting shapes.
Yeah.
And then they lovingly coat them with a lot of different colored chocolates.
Yes, right? They're all different chocolates, and then chocolate with sprinkles and coconut and all sorts of stuff.
And they look delicious. If you like mallow bars and that kind of thing, I'm sure you'd love this, or moon pies. It's just not my jam. Not my thing. The other one they do is the meringue.
Oh, the meringue. And I don't like meringue either, and they're huge meringues. But it's so beautiful.
They do these massive meringue
beautiful colors.
And they do them in different bits of food coloring or whatever they color them. There's bright blue and bright green and Christmas red, and they're all swirly. They almost look like giant peppermints, kind of thing. But they're meringue.
I want to get one because it looks so pretty, and I know I don't like meringue.
But yeah, it's kind of like cotton candy. I'm not a cotton candy fan. You kind of want to hold the giant cotton candy
because it looks cool, but it's kind of gross.
It's the same thing. It's like you get this giant. Yeah, I just can't. I can't get behind it.
Yeah, no, that wasn't one of my favorite things. We did have, we did too, and they have these a lot in the U.S. too. But we tried these, and we had one as we left Amsterdam. We experienced sort of our last bit of this, the stroopwafels.
Oh, stroopwafels.
Which are two little, if anybody doesn't know, they're all over the place in the US now too. Yeah, you can put on top of your coffee. The idea is that it melts it, and it's this really thin little wafers that have, and then there's caramel in the middle, and it kind of gets melty.
Yeah, it's like two really thin waffles, like really thin, hard waffles.
Imagine you just kind of put your fingers together, made a circle.
With
they're not
thin
big.
Layer of caramel, sort of sticking them together.
Yeah.
And then the idea is you sit these things on top of your warm coffee, and the coffee softens it, and then you eat your stroopwafel.
And you eat your stroopwafel.
Yeah.
And you can buy them in packs, and then you can go to these places in Amsterdam where they're making fresh ones, and it smells glorious. It's just like when you walk into an ice cream shop and they're making their own waffle cones.
But much like the Belgian waffles, the street waffles, with the stroopwafels in Amsterdam, they'll make them right there. They'll dunk half of it in chocolate and say, what topping do you want on it? They'll stick anything on it.
And there's
things.
M&Ms,
Smarties, pretzels.
Yeah.
White chocolate chips, dark chocolate, you name it.
And while we were there, I made a point. We'd like to go to coffee shops, and I did not go to any Starbucks because there were all these.
You got to try the local flavor.
Right? Yeah. So I did not go to Starbucks. But when we were leaving the airport, I thought, I haven't had my go-to thing at Starbucks. I'm going to go there and just get that before I hop on the flight. It's a long flight home. And then it said, there was a sign. It said the Christmas classics. Their Christmas classics and our Christmas classics are not the same. Because one of their Christmas classics was a stroopwafel latte.
Yes, apparently. And there's no stroopwafel on it, just latte.
I wanted there to be crumbled stroopwafel, which there wasn't, which I feel like was a fail. Or we could have gotten gypped by the airport Starbucks.
Although I have to say, my favorite latte of the week, do you know what it's going to be?
No.
Of our entire vacation, my favorite latte was called the funky waffle latte.
Oh my God, it was.
And so it was like a caramel latte, and they took an entire, like, I guess a half of a Belgian waffle,
Yes.
and they dipped it in some chocolate, and they stuck it on top of your latte like it was a lid.
Yes.
And so it was like a Stroop waffle on steroids because you have this giant waffle on there.
And he managed to get this. So I
got one of these babies twice because it was so good.
Well,
Two
and
different days.
the craziest thing is I was getting ready and doing some work before we left for that day. So he comes all the way up from the coffee shop downstairs with his coffee and this crazy coffee, the waffle.
Carried it all the way around the block into the hotel.
I don't even know how he did it.
Through the elevator.
And he like
into the room,
gets into the
key out
room,
of my
and
pocket.
I thought, how the heck did you get all the way up here without losing
Yeah.
that? So like mad skills. Props
And
to my husband.
all the staff of the hotel was just looking at me knowingly, going, "Oh, he knows where to go for his coffee."
It was really good. And then we went back the next day and we got another one because it was really good.
because it was really good.
And we fought over the waffle.
So waffles and coffee, Stroop or otherwise, are
I know.
definitely
I'm going to
a
miss
nice.
the waffles. Maybe I'll just make waffles for breakfast tomorrow just because.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to The Road Reflected. To follow more of Nicole Wakeland's adventures, head on over to NicoleWakeland.com. There you'll find links to her social media from TikTok to Twitter, as well as her work across a wide range of media outlets. Until next time, keep it shiny side up.